Inking supplies might be tricky. I've heard that multiliners are expensive, and that might be true to some extent. But of course, 2 years and a half alone are doable. But if you want all of the sizes, it starts to be less doable. The solution is to grab a really thin one and a really fat one. My go-tos are a 0.05 and a zero point 0.3, but I can take a zero point 0.1 or and a zero point 0.3. It's really that it gets. This is if I really need a thin lines, but zero point 0.1 is the same. And you don't really need bigger sizes unless you really need thicker lines, or if you are going with um, panels for comics. I use bigger sizes only if I'm working really big, or if I'm doing, as I said, frames for comics, for comic panels. In that case, I would say to buy just maybe 1.5 or zero point 0.8. But that's all, because you definitely don't need all of the sizes. You can build up your lines with a smaller pen, um, and even shape the lines as you like. Also, look for different brands. Of course, Sakura are well known, as well as Copics, but there are other brands that are equally good and they cost less. Try Faber-Castell or Staedtler or whatever you find at a cheaper price. Just be sure to read whether or not they are alcohol or waterproof. If that's what you're going for, of course. If you're just drawing with pen and you don't want to play with any kind of other media, just grab whatever you want. Another alternative that I deeply love is to use gel pens. I know I'm saying that name very often, but Flying Tigers offers pack of 2 gel pens for just €1. That means that you have pen for just 50 cents, and guess what? The ink is perfect with both markers and watercolors. They are not 100% waterproof. I filled an entire sketchbook with those pens, and I seriously love them. Like the flow, the fact that they can work with pretty much every media, everything. Of course, not all of the gel pens are water and alcohol resistant, but yet again, it's just a matter of testing and find what works best for you, the brand that you didn't know that worked, but it works. Usually, gel pens costs less than microns, and they get really thin lines that you can build up with patience. So they are a pretty good alternative to me. If you want to try brush pens, you can either order a Tombow brush pen that is pretty inexpensive. I think it costs a couple of dollars, and it comes with a harder tip and a softer tip, and it's just good to bring around with you, especially if you are new with brush pens, because it gives you more control, because the bristles are like not real bristles in a sense. So yeah, this is currently my favorite pen to bring around. Anyways, if you want the Pentel pocket brush pen, which unfortunately I can't find right now, if you want to use that, it could be more expensive both buying it and in the long run, because they range from 10 if you're lucky to €17, and their refills are, well, they're not exactly expensive, but they are not cheap either. So you can do two things. Either you manually refill your empty cartridges with your own ink, or you just don't blind buy the Pentel Pocket Brush Pen and just you invest in a good brush and a bottle of ink. Because the Sign Brush Pen is one of my favorite, because it is the one that gets the closest to the feeling of a real brush. So why don't you just skip the portability and invest in something that will last you pretty much forever? For almost the same price, you can buy a really good brush and really good ink. Winston & Newton Black India ink. This is the waterproof version with the spider. It costs about €2 50 per bottle. And if you work with lots of ink, you can save up money grabbing a big bottle that can cost something from 6 to 10 euros. But it's 250 ml, so it's really a lot of ink. And this lasts a lot, believe me. And the brush I use and that I suggest is the Winsor & Newton Series 7. The size doesn't really matter, but I ideally suggest you to buy the smaller ones because you can have more control over them. And they start from €9 and they go higher the bigger the brush it gets. Mine is a number 2 and I think I paid like €12, but it's easier to start, as I said, with smaller brushes like a 0 or a 1, and they last for a lifetime. You don't have to buy more. Well, I have more than one, but that's only because I couldn't find the one that I needed immediately, and I immediately needed a brush, so I had to buy another one. And that happened twice. The one I have and that I use the most is perfect, and I've used for years and years. So that means that I will have backups of this brush for ages. And the great thing about buying ink and brushes separately is that if you think that inking with the brush tip doesn't work for you, you can always use the brush to paint with anything else. Because this is real hair, so it's perfect with watercolors, for instance. Brushes! It's hard to find good cheap brushes, but it's not impossible. Every time I see brushes with good bristles at the Euro store, I try to grab and try them, because they are probably not the best, and out of 5, probably 3 are damaged or not well cut. But you can use the bad ones for masking fluid or stuff that would damage or ruin your good brushes. And the good ones, you can use them for, actual paintings. Like this one comes from a set at the dollar store, and it's actually pretty good. And I don't know if you guys have Lidl where you live, but they sometimes make great deals with art supplies. Like they sometimes place a pack of 10 brushes for €10, and most of them, if not all of them, are actually pretty good. Like this come from 2 different sets from Lidl, and as you can see, they look and feel pretty good. If you already tried cheaper brushes and didn't like them, I would suggest you to keep looking for the perfect cheap brush. Or if you think that buying 7 cheap brushes is not convenient, just for the same price, maybe you should invest in one or a couple, depending on the size, of good paint brushes and limit yourself to smaller size. Because, and that is especially true when we are talking about real hair brushes, the bigger the brush, the pricier it gets. Start little, like this is a number 1, a number 4, things like this. I know there are really cheap alternatives to famous watercolor brands, but if you are starting out, I would suggest you to grab a travel set of whatever student grade brand you have in your country. First of all, travel set. Being compact and everything offers very few colors, which forces you to learn color theory through practice and create your own colors every time. Then you have basically everything you need in your pocket and you can bring it with you everywhere you go. Like they usually come with a little paintbrush that is pretty usable. I've known lots of people starting out watercolors with huge set, and that is not only more expensive, but it leaves you into your comfort zone of having exactly the color you want, which is fine, but not good if you are trying to learn and if you are starting out. This is a Winsor Newton Codman Travel Sketchers kit, I think, and this is a travel kit by My Mary. They are both student grade. The student grade from My Mary is called Venezia, and now I think it might be harder to find this outside of Italy, but if you can find this My Mary one or whatever it is branded outside of Italy, just buy this one. Prefer it over the most known Winsor Newton because it is so much better. The color choices are much better, and even though they have less colors, I think that the less is more is really true for this. Plus the colors are more pigmented. They usually cost 17 euros for the Winston Newton and 19 for the My Mary, but I bought them on sale years and years ago and they cost me about 10 euros each. So look for offers. If you don't feel the urge to watercolor right now, maybe wait for offers. Otherwise, 17 euros are not that much for a set that will last you at least a couple years. And save up, grab a smaller set but of a good quality. If you are already familiar with watercolors and you are really sad that artist grade watercolors are so freaking expensive, I suggest you to look into St. Petersburg's White Nights watercolors because they offer great watercolors and they have full pans. As you can see, they are really massive. And their smaller set is 12 full pants and it costs like 27 euros, which is really nothing compared to well-known artist grade brands. And I haven't talked about this before because it's the most expensive thing that I could talk about into the cheap watercolor section. But and probably if you think that 17 euros are too much for a watercolor set, you probably would never spend 30 € for a starter kit. But believe me when I say that they are really worth it. This is my travel set that I made cannibalizing a Prima watercolor thin and inserting a selection of colors I would use the most. White Nights actually comes into this pretty cheap plastic plate, and I think it's really close to the Winsor Newton in design. They can be cute because they are white and smooth and everything, but I'm always afraid of breaking it, and oftentimes I found pans stuck into this upper lid. Anyways, Prima watercolor are not bad either, but their quality really varies from color to color. So unless you want fancy thin and random quality watercolor, I would suggest sticking with what is known to be at least decent, so that you wouldn't be discouraged. Anyways, this full set of artist grade full pans from White Nights costs about 70 euros, which is the same price of the student grade big set of half pans from Winsor & Newton. So, just saying. As I said, save up and buy a little itty bitty travel set. I unfortunately can't talk much about oils or gouache or acrylics paints because I'm not that experienced with them, and I would probably give you the worst advices ever. So we will just talk about the accessories for painting. Spray bottles are really useful to activate the color, keep them wet, and you can even bring one around and refill your water brush if you have one. Some brands of art supply like Derwent, they sell their their own spray bottles at high prices, but trust me that this dollar store spray bottle works just the same and saves you lots of money. Just to understand what I'm saying, this thing cost me about 70 cents, and I just looked on Amazon for the Derwent one, and it's listed 11 euros. Guys, their mist effect is the same, so just save your money and buy the dollar store spray bottle. Another accessory is the masking tape or artist tape. I don't know what's the difference really. Um, so sorry about that. But it costs maximum 2 euros for this big roll, and it lasts for a lot of paintings. This helps to keep your paper flat while painting on it, and you can even use it to mask some areas and to create effect and have sharper edges. And that's all with it. You can find it in pretty much every color. It's basically a kind of tape that doesn't damage your paper when you remove it. So yet again, if you find something that you think it can work, try it on a scrap piece of paper and see if it works. Even if it's not called artist tape, try it. If it works, it's good. Okay. If you need more space to mix your colors, again at Zola store they sell this kind of flower shaped palette, and this costed me like €1. And as you can see, it's pretty big, and of course it's plastic. It's €1, so it's pretty inexpensive, and if you look really carefully you would find even smaller ones at maybe 80 cents. So you have palettes for nothing. As for markers, they are not as expensive as one might think. Flying Tiger sells packs of 3 for €3. That means just €1 per marker, which is crazy. Other brands might sell markers from 2 to €5, and we are still talking about bullet tip ones. If the €5 marker and the €1 marker if they are both bullet tip ones, the most expensive and the less expensive, just go with the less expensive. The only difference would be in the tip, but they are the same, so just save your money. Markers with a brush tip are usually way expensive, but in my experience, Copics are not the most expensive that you can buy. Because at least here where I live, a brush marker of any other brands costs 6 to 9 euros each, which is the same price as the Copic sketch markers. I found places that sell sketch markers at even less than that, but that's another story. What you need to know is that unless you find really good deals, the only reasonable alternative to Copics are Copics. What I mean is that the sketch marker, which is the go-to for many artists, is the very same as the Ciao marker that was created for kids, so it's cheaper in packaging and with those little holes on the cap so that if the kid swallows it, the air can still pass through, allowing him to breathe. It also holds less ink inside, and it has a limited range of colors. But that's all that different. The colors of the Ciao are actually selection of the sketch. That means that the ink is the same and so is the tip, which is what it really matters because you want sketch markers usually because of the brush tip. And if you damage your brush nib, you can change it. So you can use refills to refill the ink, like you can change your nibs if they are broken, and that means that those things are practically immortal. I am of course talking about the prices that I see every day, and I live in Italy, so keep that in mind when I'm doing this comparison. But a Copic sketch markers can cost up to 7 euros. Some places sells it at 5. A Copic chalk marker can cost up to 5 euros. Some places sells it at 3.20. The Winsor and Newton brush marker, previously letter set, can cost up to 9 euros. Some places sells it at 7 if you are really like it at 5. The regular marker with bullet tip can cost 2 to 5 euros. And I think about my really old pro markers for 5 euros each. That means that buying a Copic Chow in the right places, doing researches and everything can actually cost less than buying a regular bullet tip marker. One can argue that this is a lot of money if you buy them in bulk. But that's the point. You don't need to buy big sets. You don't even need to buy sets. Because nowadays you can order single colors and pick the ones you really need or you really want. And I would suggest you to grab like just a couple of colors to see if you like the Copics and like how the brush reacts. If you can obtain the effects you want, and so on. And one of two markers is enough to understand, really. And when I test out new colors, I always grab a gray and a color that catches my eye. I can always use the gray for like under the color shadows, like you color with gray and then you place your watercolor on top and you have, with the transparency you will have the shadow underneath and blah blah blah. Or you can work in monochromatic pictures that are easier usually in grayscale, or you can add the second color you bought, that would be, I guess, a real color, to add pops of colors to your monochromatic picture. And you can even shade the color with the gray if you pick them wisely. So just grab a couple of markers, and if you are satisfied with them, go ahead and build your collection. And there are smaller set of chows, like a pack of 6 or 5 plus 1, I can't remember. I think you can afford them monthly if you want, but if you can maybe afford a single marker per week or per month. Just just build up your collection slowly but constantly. And that's the secret, guys. Seriously, just slowly but constantly. Of course, if you want to buy the 72 set of Copic sketch, you will always say that they are too pricey and you can't afford them. But starting gradually with the chows and buying them like singles, you can totally do it. Also, you can ask for them, well, maybe not full set, but a list of spare ones, maybe for Christmas or for your birthday. And you can mix colors. You can really mix colors really easily with Copics, so you don't need all of the colors in the world because you can build your own colors by layering them. You can start with just a few. You can mix and match them and add colors as you as you can as you go. Also, mixed media is a thing. So use only the colors that you have in Copics and do the rest in watercolor or shade them with pencil. Just be creative. And as I said, charcoals are refillable, just like the sketch marker. So if you run out of a certain color, instead of tossing away the marker like you would do with a Winsor Newton, you just buy a refill, which is more expensive when you buy it, but it will last you a long time because it's like buying 10 markers for the price of 2 markers. Markers can dry out without even using them because they have what it's called shelf life. That means that the alcohol inside of the markers can evaporate into a span of 5 to 10 years, depending on what they declared as a shelf life. So that means that you can avoid to use markers, not to waste them, and when you are finally going to use them, they will be dry. And when you buy non-refillable ones, you risk to just toss them away whole. But with refillable markers, you can just buy a refill and use it up as much as you want. And if you still think that markers are too expensive, just don't use markers. Use watercolors instead, or pencils, or inks. It's just as easy. My favorite cheap colored pencils are the Faber-Castell watercolor pencils. I love watercolor pencils because they tend to be softer and easier to blend. And I had this watercolor pencils, um, this particular pack, even since I was like 12, I think. And it's a really small pack, 24 color, and it costs about 10 euros, but I promise they are great. Plus, you don't need a hundred and plus colors pencil to draw. You really need a small to medium set, and that is more than enough because, again, like I said, for Copics, with colored pencils, you can layer them and create your own colors. You can create exactly what you want. And if you like a higher brand of pencils, or you can do just like I suggested to do with Copics. You know, you just buy one or a couple every time you can, and you just try to pick the colors that you think you can actually use the most. I've heard wonders of Crayola colored pencils, but we unfortunately don't sell them in here. And yeah, believe it or not, Faber Castell is considered one of the most famous grade school art supply brand. So sorry if it's way more expensive where you live, but it really shouldn't, because as you can see, this is a pretty grade school pack. It's not Albrecht Dürer, and it's grade school watercolor pencils. Just try what you have. Do you want to add touch-ups to your pictures, like a little white in the eyes or outline a picture that you liked the most, but you think white gel pens are too expensive, or like they stop working after a while and you get stressed? Well, no problem. You just buy a tube of white acrylic paint, and I recommend titanium white because it's the whitest. This is pretty inexpensive, it's like 1 to 2 euros maximum, and just use a small brush to do the touch-ups. This tube will last you for ages. I bought this like 5 years ago, and it's still soft. It still works. So just store it properly, and it lasts for a long, long, long time. If you use the paint straight from the tube, it can cover pure black really well. Yeah, I guess it's everything. Don't use your lack of money as an excuse not to draw. Because I myself have been drawing with pretty much basic art supplies and hand-me-downs for pretty much all of my life. I've started to actually buy art supplies with my own money when I started to work. So if you can't afford anything else, just practice with ballpoint pen or printer paper or pencils or the back of the calendar pages. Like everything is good, really. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. Thank you guys so much for watching, and remember to thumbs up, subscribe or comment down below if you want or if you have any questions. And yeah, see you guys in my next video. Bye!